All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's Other Power. So I wanted to make a video about a question I got asked on Instagram very recently. So I'm going to read this question to you guys really quick here. So this guy's name is Alejandro32242000. So he says, Nick, if steroids are illegal, then what was the deal with former police officer Ronnie Coleman using them? Now, I think that is an excellent question, and really the answer is probably kind of a sad answer, but it's probably the reality of the situations. Everything I say from this point forward is just going to be my opinion on why nobody really cared Ronnie was using steroids, even though it was blatantly obvious to everyone who ever looked at him. And again, this is nothing against Ronnie. I mean, it's not Ronnie's fault that nobody said anything and nobody cared that he was taking steroids. I mean, this guy was an 8-time Mr. Olympia. He had to do what he had to do to get to that 8-time Olympia championship. But really, the fact that other people didn't, take notice or didn't arrest him or kind of overlooked the fact that he was using them, that's not his fault at all. Because clearly Ronnie wasn't trying to hide anything. I mean, this guy was damn near 300 pounds in the off season. And if you've seen this guy in that one video that we've all seen on YouTube where he's getting dressed in his police uniform and he looks just massive. I mean, there's no way people didn't have any suspicions or people didn't know what was going on with that. And people just thought he was, taking his vitamins and eating his vegetables. And that's why he looked like Ronnie Coleman looked, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think the number one reason is probably the good old boys argument that the police tend to protect their own, and another cop probably isn't going to go to the chief and say, hey, I think Ronnie's taking steroids, we better arrest that guy. I mean, cops, generally they tend to look out for each other, and they tend to have kind of like a brotherhood type of code where they're not just going to randomly snitch on each other and try to get each other in trouble. So I think that was a large part of it, because again, looking at Ronnie in the late 90s when he was a police officer, I mean, it was pretty blatantly obvious that there was something going on other than, just taking his vitamins. And number two, and this is a little bit more of a generalization here, but typically a lot of cops tend to be meatheads. So I'm sure a lot of the cops around Ronnie Coleman were fans of bodybuilding. They all like to work out. A lot of police stations have gyms built into them. I mean, being physically fit is typically part of the job, even though a lot of people have that image of the fat, donut-eating police officer in their mind. The reality of the situation is a lot of these young police officers and a lot of these young recruits, I mean, these guys are physically fit, they're into fitness, they're into working out, and they want to be fit for their job. So I'm sure a lot of these guys that Ronnie worked with were fans of bodybuilding. They knew exactly who he was, and they weren't about to just hand over Mr. Olympia and give him a sentence for taking steroids. So the world really it's not always black and white. I mean, it's not always, this guy's obviously taking steroids, we're going to arrest him. There's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of in between where people don't say something and people don't really care, and people know something's probably happening and just kind of tend to ignore it. And the third reason, and this is probably the most important reason of all the reasons that I gave you, the third reason is the United States doesn't have a law like some of these other countries. I think maybe the Netherlands or one of those countries over there has a law where someone can be arrested just on the fact that they look like they're taking steroids. That is not a law here. We can't arrest someone just because they look like they're taking steroids, and that's also not probable cause to search somebody's house or search somebody's, car. So really, even though Ronnie looked like he was taking steroids, it really didn't mean anything to anybody at that time because there's nothing they could do about it. There's no laws in the United States that could really have Ronnie persecuted just for being big and looking like he might take steroids. I mean, that would be ridiculous, and that's not a United States I would want to live in anyway. So really, right off the bat, there's no probable cause. There's no real way to arrest him just for looking big. There's no real way to search him just for looking big. Even though everybody kind of knew there was something going on, you have the fact that there was no probable cause and all that to begin with. Then the fact that all police kind of have that code where they're not going to snitch on each other. And then you have the fact that a lot of police officers are probably fans of bodybuilding. So you combine those three factors, and the reality is probably no one was ever going to say anything to Ronnie Coleman about taking steroids, let alone get him arrested. So that's my opinion. Now, if you were asking me that question based on the morality of taking steroids and being a police officer, I'm not a guy that's, strictly against steroid use. I'm not an advocate of it. I'll never use steroids myself, but these pro bodybuilders, I think it's necessary for their job. I do think it's kind of a fine line in terms of morality when you're a police officer and you're doing something that's, technically illegal. So I'm not really going to comment on that, but obviously you guys can draw your own conclusions about being a police officer and breaking the law. I mean, it would probably be the equivalent of a police officer, smoking weed after work, or, kind of a hypocritical type of thing like that. So let me know what you guys think about the video in the comment section below. Do you think it's okay for a police officer to use steroids? And what do you think about the fact that Ronnie Coleman was a police officer during the prime of his career, where he was at his biggest, and it was probably undeniable there was something going on other than vitamins? So please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.